Afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. The doors are shut. Now you can't leave. Because if you to come in, there is no fee. To leave, there's $500. We just change the terms of the contract here. After the doors are closed. So when this team came together and were given this topic of alternate accommodation, we all spent some time figuring out or trying to figure out what alternate accommodation means. And the panel, by the way, is or supposed to be. We were supposed to be 5 of us, but today I think, given the attendance, we should be all 10 of us should be panelists, right? So I'm going to pass the mic from the left, starting with the lady, Smita. I'm sure everybody knows, but Smita, 1 minute introduction. And your idea of alternate accommodation.
Sure. So I'm Smita and I work for ITC Hotels. I had development for them. I was not comfortable with the terminology alternate accommodation because I feel that, maybe I'm here to speak about Story, and Story is actually a boutique hotel brand. So it is a hotel brand. In my mind, alternate accommodation is something like maybe like a Saffron Stays or an Airbnb or homestays, like what Ama is doing. So to that point, at least from ITC's point of view, I would say that anything which is not a large format hotel, from owner-operator ITC point of view, can be, which is what Story is. It's small boutique, intimate resorts in leisure locations. That can be, alternate accommodation for us. Yeah.
Okay. Akhil.
Sure. Hi, I'm Akhil Anand from the Tree of Life Resorts and Hotels. So if we just rewind 15, 18 years ago and look only at the leisure travel space, it was traditionally people going to city center hotels, large format hotels, and being interested more in sightseeing and shopping and so on. Fast forward to, and of course the pandemic sort of accelerated this thought process where now people are looking more at being outside the city centers. They want smaller inventories. They really want to get under the skin of the destination that they're in. So the food, the culture, the people, all of that. And this is what the Tree of Life sort of offers. We're in 14 destinations now and offering a varied, variety of experiences. So essentially, it's not alternate accommodation. It's really an alternate experience which people are looking for today, and that's essentially what we're catering to.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Vaibhav. I work for MakeMyTrip. I manage the alternate accommodation business for them. And for us, it's not about, and we were discussing before this also, it's more, alternate accommodation could be a term that maybe the industry is coining and we are trying to figure out what to call all the other use cases where a person might be looking to stay with somebody in their houses, or somebody might be wanting to stay in an apartment which is a standalone unit who is rented out by someone and not building a proper hotel around it. So there are a lot of use cases. We have around 20-25 different kind of places where you can spend the night or you can enjoy the experience of those places. It could be a farm stay also. So all of them combined is a consumer need which is growing. So some people actually might like to, like I was mentioning, want to stay on a boathouse, correct? And that is also an alternate to, you can stay in a leisure hotel. So all of them combined would be something we term as alternate accommodation. What we are trying to build is a brand which is, or the name which is more closer or more understood by the community, and it's called homestays, and that is what we believe is the most closer to the category as a whole.
Hi, my name is Randhir Narayan, and I'm founder of AIM Hotel Kollection. As the name suggests, we were actually founded for alternate accommodation. So what I describe as alternate accommodation is what is not a traditional hotel. Now, first thing is traditional hotel. What is a traditional hotel? A typical understanding is facility layout. So you have a staff entrance, a material entrance, a guest entrance, and a guest staircase, and a fire life safety norms, etc. When it came down to collection finding this kind of establishing this company, we kind of researched quite a bit and came up with solution for facilities which are built, but now being used for alternate use. So it's like redefining the use of these places. In some cases, these were actually kind of a basic facility of hotels which we upgraded, and in some cases these were not hotels, which then got repositioned to become hotels. So moving from there in last 4 or 5 years, what I have seen is that there is a lot of opening up of the market. So there are container homes, there are stuff like houseboats, etc., which were there more like an experiential places, and now becoming kind of an accommodation more so. And then there are now people talking about kind of taking full-fledged boats to Lakshadweep and treating them as a hotel, because Lakshadweep as an island doesn't have that infrastructure as of today. So largely anything which then gets repositioned and placed in the marketplace and then gets sold through MMT, etc., becomes an alternate accommodation for me.
Okay. So from the definitions, so to speak, where is it fair to infer that the whole terminology of alternate accommodation is more to do with experience rather than product? Is that a fair? Because what MMT is looking at classification is from a consumer point of view, right? The operators here seem to think that it is from a experience delivery point of view, but it's different from the traditional hotels.
So let me just take that. So
Yeah.
on the leisure side, you are right. To some extent, there is an experience involved, but there is a huge use case. And again, coming from the consumer angle, if you actually look at the use case for a business city, there might be somebody staying in an apartment for 2 months because of medical reasons, correct?
Yeah.
And he can't stay in a hotel. And there is a use case which is maybe beyond experience. Obviously, leisure first is a very big use case for alternative accommodation or homestays. But yes, there is other use cases which are very, very genuine in business cities, and which somebody is solving, correct? And that is where a lot of, you see, the service apartment kind of stuff is growing. So I think both experiential as well as some genuine consumer use cases are both combined together forms an alternative accommodation.
And so why is it that whatever angle you're coming from, right, and however you're defining this whole alternate accommodation space, why is it suddenly gaining so much popularity or getting so much love? Is it because the traditional models are done and dusted? Is it because the consumer is now becoming more vocal, or are we just understanding the consumer better?
Sure, if I may. So I'm going to be a bit cliched here, but we've heard this, that people want to spend money on experiences more than buying things, right? So, but it's true. I mean, it's cliched, but it's true. So that's what people are doing. And we're smart enough to sort of realize as operators that this is a market and then we need to be in this. And how we got into story was that our customers spoke to us and they wanted to be in destinations where we cannot have large format hotels. So which is the reason why we've jumped into this product, this alternate accommodation. We are into this boutique space and we've created this brand. So I don't know if I've answered your question, because what I'm trying to say is that there's obviously this demand for people want to feed their souls more than feed their stomachs. I mean, they're also looking to do that. So, which is why there is a market, and which is why brands like us, Akhil is creating a brand. We are also creating a brand. We are already a operator of large format hotels, but we are creating this brand and we are entering this market. So yeah, the demand existed. These properties were existing, which was special, but they were invisible. And now with us giving them the platform for visibility, and also standardizing some processes for them, we are actually organizing this sector, but it did exist.
See, I think, and we discussed this while we were talking a little earlier for the larger audience, basically we are trying to answer certain type of need. So, and my thing is that need is there also to operate a facility which is built. So when you go as a large format hotel company to the mountains, you don't have to necessarily build a mountain of rooms. You can stay with something which is built and curate and service it and then throw it open to the public to use. So essentially the need of the asset gets answered by what we are trying to provide in terms of a managed service. Need of the customer is getting answered by his getting a more organized play where he can kind of stay and experience. Most of these destinations need the fact that there is accommodation which gets curated and distributed and the customer gets an access to this. So both these things are meeting together to give a rise to this thing in last few years. Having said that, to be honest, what we started doing was probably 4.5, 5 years back. So it is not COVID propelled, but it is something that we defined as a requirement of in the country. And I always say that, look, chain hotels were very European in their concept. Collection or an alternate accommodation is a very African or an European kind of a mindset. And that's where it comes to play here.
No, but to be fair, I mean, the mango orchard experience in Ratnagiri, where you lived with the local family and ate their food, has been around for years, right? The fact that somebody had a second or third home in Bhimtal, Nainital, and that would go and get marketed as a lease product or a short stay product has been around for as long as housing has been around. So what is it that has really propelled the need? Is it, and that's what I'm saying, is it that the end user has become more vocal in their demand, or have we just understood it rather late as a business proposition, or is it the fact that the traditional hotel setup is now becoming so done and over with that we really need to find different ways to get people to come and stay with us?
So,
anyone? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm still not very clear with this terminology, alternate accommodation, luxury trains, cruises, Nile cruises, treetop, accommodation, all that has been in existence for years, adventure sports. So why the term alternate accommodation? It's just another addition to this terminology. Is it a hip thing to say, or I don't know?
So to my mind, I think it's a great way to bring everything that we don't understand in the traditional hospitality under an umbrella. Because of our desire and need to compartmentalize life in general, right? And then we are going and saying, oh, when I travel for business, I can live in a hotel, but when I want to go for a holiday with my family, I want a different experience, so I must go somewhere else. I think that's where I find that the demand is coming from, right? Because if you really go out and say in a city like Mumbai that I'm going to curate 15 rooms that are going to provide you a Kohli experience, I don't think the demand would be as much as if you did the same thing in Alibag, right? Because the traveler who's coming into these destinations is different. The expectations are different, right? But let's just move along and try and understand this a little bit better. And we have one of the largest players in the alternate accommodation space, and she should have been on the panel.
Yeah, in fact, on 2-3 points just to add to the last point before we move on. So in fact, like people mentioned, it's not like it started in 2020 or something that we are trying to coin. It has been around. To be fair, yeah, COVID helped, because COVID was the time probably when alternative accommodation, or especially the villas or the secluded stays, are the ones which got a lot more prominence for fair reasons, correct? People were wanting to go out and but to think that alternative accommodation exists because of COVID would be wrong. Why? Because the need was there, and that is why there was some supply earlier and people were doing. So that is one thing. It is it did speed up because of certain reasons. So that is also true.
I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
You know, we have to understand that alternate accommodation is purely targeted to the leisure segment. So city center hotels will not go out of fashion ever. That's not what we're trying to say, right? When you come for a conference like this is an extremely convenient setting to be in. It's purely leisure, and I think one of the reasons that has driven this demand in the recent past is that our cities are becoming more and more chaotic. Right? They're getting more polluted, they're getting more noisy, and the more that happens, the more demand will grow for accommodations that are outside city centers. So to answer your question, I think 2-3 things. One is being outside the city center, no noise, no pollution, letting you really engage with the local community. I think that's how I would define alternate accommodation.
No, so just to counter that, if I may, right? What stops somebody from creating an experience within a city which is different from any other city hotel? Can that still fall under the umbrella of alternate accommodation?
So,
Because it's not that people are not coming into cities, right? Just like city folk are traveling outside the city to get away, there is probably a market which has not been tapped of outside city folk wanting to come to the city, right? And if you're able to then move them away from a sterile box, right, which is the city hotel, and provide a true city experience, maybe there is a market for it. Maybe. I don't have an answer. I'm just asking the question.
There are already some very nice brands who are doing good experiences within the city and providing a good alternate to the large format hotels by being right in the middle of, in the thick of the city.
Okay.
So I'll give you a good example you picked up. I'll give you an example. So take for example birthday parties. And I am from Delhi, so a lot of people, they don't want to do the birthday parties at home. So another example of creating an experience in city which is difficult to replicate in a hotel, correct? Because hotel will not allow probably 50 people doing party in 2 rooms, or maybe not. The larger question is what you were alluding to earlier also, is that is it that the same consumer has to choose between an alternative accommodation or hotel, or is it more basis what he needs at that point in time, correct? Yeah. When I am doing a birthday party, I am using an alternative accommodation or an apartment. When I'm going for a business trip, I would love to go to because I need a quick check-in, I need laundry, I need those things. You probably will pick up a hotel. And that is how both of them have coexisted till now. And now more and more people are using those avenues or those experiences. So probably that is why you're seeing the growth in the alternative accommodation also.
Okay.
And
So,
the city hotels can have these, so long as there's some character, at least I'll speak for story. So long as there's some character to the building, so there's a Bengali bari in Calcutta or something like that, or an English home, or old home, or whatever. There's something by way of a narrative to that building, and you can create experiences around it. So again, it is servicing the leisure client, not typically the corporate. So this is exactly what Akhil was saying. So it wouldn't be, I mean, I'm going for a meeting or whatever it is, and I'd like to sort of stay in this hotel, which is what you were saying. But this is, again, servicing the leisure needs. And when a person wants to sort of experience a Bengali bari in a Calcutta, right? And I also think that we are also competing with, today we are not only competing with, each other as a product, we are competing with the homes of these people as well. Because their homes are very lavish, our consumers, very proper. They have everything, nice bed, nice shower, interior designed homes. So as an alternate accommodation, or in any case, as a hospitality brand, or as a, an accommodation industry, we are competing with the homes of people who have nice, lavish homes. So we need to sort of now look at that. Are we able to sort of service that? Are we providing them more than what they get at home? Yeah.
which pretty much both of you have led us to the next question. My next question was going to be, are the services required very, very different from the traditional hotel scenario, which is what you sort of alluded to, saying that when you go for a business trip, there is a certain set of boxes you need to tick. And maybe in the leisure space, it's a little bit more flexible, right? not the quality of delivery, but the requirements, right? And Smita is saying something similar in terms of. So how different is the facility base in your experience that is required? Assuming you're competing in an alternate accommodation space with a regular leisure resort in that destination, how different does your base product need to be? Forget the curation of experience, forget the level of staff training, all that, right? Just the basic brick and mortar, how different does it need to be?
So basically you have to make good of what it is and what is there. And then you need to figure out whether that's good enough to compete with a traditional resort. Few things, depending upon, again, locations is very important. So if you're in Goa and doing something, a pool is really wanted and a must. But if you're in the mountains, that's not true. It's good enough to have a path leading to the forest, etc., and that's good enough. So it again differs from location to location, and it is not. But I'll take you to the next step. In terms of staffing, it changes drastically. So a typical resort operation, let's say if it is 30 keys or 70 keys, it does its math 2:1 as per room and deploys that number. For alternate or kind of refitted hospitality, it has got to be completely need-based. And while multi-skilling is an option and a desire elsewhere, here it is a must. So the person who is my maybe plumber can also be checking you or providing security or walking with you to the forest. A person who is a chef is also definitely meeting the guest and servicing him in terms of delivery of food. So these are how things change in type of hospitality that we are doing, and there is no option that I have to say that this man will serve the drink, but this guy will serve you the food. Or this person will sort out your plumbing, but this person will give you security. That leisure or that comfort we never have.
Sorry, we started off by saying that people are looking at authentic experiences. And so the way we see it, the cookie cutter approach doesn't work for us at all. It has to reflect the essence. I'm talking about hardware. It has to reflect the essence of the environment of the culture that you're in. So for example, our flagship resort in Jaipur, we haven't used any bricks or cement. It's just limestone and lime, and that's the way Rajasthan was built 200 years ago. It's the firmest model of construction. So these are things that people are looking for. So the hardware has to reflect it, and then you go on to things like uniform and menus and so on, and then the software supports that, and then you sort of come and give a very authentic local experience which is true to the destination that you're based in.
Just one point to add to, obviously there is the construction and the way you build it. But there is something which, and see, frankly, we get, so we are building this alternative accommodation, we are getting the customer insight also. And again, I'll come back to the consumer point of view. And so what we have realized that it is kind of Western phenomena. It started more in Western countries where homestays, and slowly we are picking up. But obviously there is a difference between what the consumer, so there is a consumer insight for India which is very different, correct? What works in India, what works outside of India does not work in India. For example, when an Indian family is going on vacation, they don't want to cook. So it's just out of the question that you can ask somebody in the family to make food, correct? So you have to have a cook. They don't expect, they expect a caretaker, correct? So the cook and caretaker, so those are the, which could be okay in a Western setting. In Europe, it might be okay that I do my own dishwashing or something, but in India, somebody expects to be served. So those are the, so I think what the difference between, or you can call it, we are learning from global, but we are making it more local. The learning that we are getting is that there are some basic things that people will always desire when they are going, because for them it's an experience, correct? They are going to enjoy that holiday. They are not going to do the daily work or daily chores. So, and that is where I think we need to create the differentiation, and that is what we are trying to build. We are trying to make sure that we show the actual cook availability or not, correct? Are you bringing a maid along? Where will she stay? Those kind of things which are probably not required or so important in Western society, but it's very, very critical in India. So I think that is where you can say the difference lies in the way that you have to build the alternative accommodation. You have to keep the Indian consumer in mind and what is his need. You can't just copy paste whatever you have seen outside and try to make it a success.
No, but I mean, over the years we've learned that copy paste in India doesn't work at all.
Correct.
Across multiple asset classes or even multiple services, right?
Sorry, can we just add just one point to this? We realized that in this alternate accommodation space, there is also, so to say, and it comes from the point which you started out with, that if there is alternate accommodation and there is a resort next door, how does it differentiate? And we've realized that in alternate accommodation also there is branded alternate accommodation and there is an unbranded alternate accommodation. Now we've seen that when we've taken a property run by the family, 6 rooms, there is X level of guest expectation there for the same price point. The moment you put a brand onto it, that expectation level of the guest goes a notch or two higher. Why? Because a brand has come in. You've changed nothing too much because the guy is running it very well. He's charging $6,000 a night, giving all what you need. But we found that the moment the brand comes in, the guest automatically then has an expectation of the brand, whichever brand takes it. So I think in this alternate accommodation also we have to differentiate between branded alternate accommodation and unbranded alternate accommodation.
And to that I just want to ask a question.
Sure.
If you have 6 rooms, 4 rooms, so does it become viable then for a brand to manage it?
Sir, सारे सवाल आप ही कर लोगे तो मैं क्या करूँ? Because that is part of the question list and absolutely valid. So if we are going to look at alternate accommodation and classify it further branded, unbranded, does it, for it to be brandable, does it really need to be scalable? Is the next question. Because for whoever wants to take it, and maybe we can get some inputs from there as well.
I have a comment on your copy paste.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the Oberoi Villases, they are pretty copy-paste. Each one is the same, similar uniform, similar food, hugely successful. There is a market for that, as such. But again, there are others who, like he said, people want to experience local. They want a complete change of deco, uniforms, food, local cuisine. So there are different strokes for different folks.
I was referring to the copy-paste from the international market to the India market.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you copy something which is not Indian necessarily and paste it in India, you will have to modify it to make it Indianized.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
That was my
Okay.
limited point. Yeah, Desh, go ahead.
Hi. So I was wanting to answer that about whether a 4-room or a 6-room becomes viable. And I think, as an industry, we've seen a very, very interesting, trend. So when this whole, when we started the company and when we, all alternate accommodations. I'm so sorry, yes. I'm Tejas and I run a company called Saffron Stays. We run vacation homes. So, the branded vacation rentals, as, someone was saying right now. What I was trying to say is that when homeowners come to us, when initially they started coming to us, it was largely to just monetize an existing dead idle asset, right? Because they are not using it anymore, their kids don't want to go there, obviously the family gets tired of going to the same place. So it's just to monetize, to keep it running and to make it neutral on their pockets. Then, of course, we've seen a trend where people start looking at it also as a earning asset of the family, asset class. And we are now seeing where people are coming and saying, I have a land bank and I want to build over here. And, how do we construct it? What makes it viable? So to answer that, a 4 to 6 room just in one remote location definitely is not viable. But what we've done is we've answered that question as an operator very differently for ourselves. What we've done is we've created clusters and we've gone deep in every cluster. So today in Alibag, for example, we run 35 homes. In Lonavala alone, we run about 40-45 homes. And we found that this cluster approach gives us the kind of economies that a hotel might be able to generate at some point. And of course, what you were saying about the smarter ways in which you actually, have, manned the places. You have multi-skilled, people running there. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but definitely it becomes, it's getting a lot of people fantastic returns, in fact, on their investments.
Yeah, but just from a return perspective, right? If you really look at the rental yield anywhere else, and if you look at the sort of second home yield, right? The fact that the second home investment is historic in most cases makes or tends to make it more viable. So if you today picked up an acre of land and said, I'll build 4 homes there, and then choose to monetize it, it may be a completely different Rossi.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I agree.
So I think a large part, and which is where the point that you, in the alternate accommodation space, you make use of what exists rather than build to suit, maybe makes more sense.
Yeah. It's also sustainable in a way. You're not adding more to,
Yeah,
the brick and cement in a particular area.
Yeah, especially if, especially if it's bordering reserves or in the mountains or whatever it may be. So, which was sort of going to be the next point, as against the traditional asset class of hotels, right? Is this a more viable, profitable, scalable growth story? Because the inventory exists. You don't have to go out and build. You're not going to spend the next 6-8 months getting permissions and another 3 years building, if you're lucky, right? Maybe apart from you, where your conversion may take a significant amount of time because you want to retain the sort of ethos and the traditional design and so on and so forth. So it's almost like a restoration. But even with that, right, if you wanted to recreate that today, and maybe the Vilas experience is an experience to go with. If you had to recreate a traditional design today or a heritage look today, it probably costs more than a normal, steel and glass. So where is the economics working?
I think Randhir wants to.
So I think the whole approach has to change. I think mentally what we are trying to do is to get down from Grand Hyatt and trying to manage alternate accommodation and find the logic therein. That whole approach needs to completely get wiped off. We need to start afresh. So viability is very simple. If you meet, how were these hotels getting managed yesterday? They were families. They used to own these 4, 6, 10 keys and they used to run it. They would never account for their own time cost as their cost of employment, etc. So they were still making profit. And the other...
Also, they didn't have a branding fee and
that I will justify separately. But the reality is that at that level, very interesting thing happened. I spoke to a number of owners across this country, from Chennai up to Assam, etc. And what I figured out is that they have a simple rule, 50% rule, which means that if I'm earning 2,000 rupees from a person, I will spend on him $1,000. Whether he gets one piece of bread, one egg, or lemon water, it doesn't matter to me. So this 50% rule, if we apply to these alternate accommodations, I think viability will be much smarter and much quicker, and in all formats. And the moment we move away and we become corporatized and we want to kind of bring in logic, we will not make money.
Exactly. So it's not really scalable, right? It's financially viable, but is it financially rewarding? The answer is probably no. And if you want to go into a lot of detail into the hardware and the guest experience and really individualize every destination, can you manage that with scale is a question that time will tell.
No, but scale could just simply mean that you're under the umbrella of a brand or for lack of a better word, a bank account, right? Because eventually that's what will show the viability, right? You could be across 40, 50 locations and each of them could be very different. So I'm saying, is that scalability possible? I can understand that in a given destination, you may not be able to do more than 10, 15, 20, 40, whatever the scope of that or the potential of that destination may be. But as somebody who is willing or able or positioning themselves to provide alternate accommodation, how scalable is it? Can you compete with, say, the smallest boutique hotel brand, for example, for lack of any other benchmark?
So personally, I feel a small sort of boutique alternate accommodation brand will never be able to speak the language of the big guys, right? 100 hotels, 150 hotels. Then you'll somewhere down the line lose the essence of what you started off with. So for me, no, I don't think it's really that scalable when you compare it with the larger brands. But I'm glad that people like ITC are now looking at this smaller space also. So we're probably on the right track.
So I wanted to say that, from ITC's point of view, I'm not going to give an outrageous number like, oh, we'll have 500 or 100 or whatever in the next 5 years. What we are looking for are properties that speak to us, that have a narrative, character, right? They need to speak to us. So that I don't know of how many of those are available or how many owners are there. Though we get a lot of leads. We get about 10 leads in a week. And we have to evaluate them. I mean, as development people, we have our highs and lows of being busy and bored. We are only busy now. But yeah, I mean, so what I'm going to say is that, in the next, probably this financial year, we should have at least 5 stories up and running. On scalability, how we are planning to sustain this is because we have created a team within a team. So we are not going to fund an infrastructure for this brand. So our team, which is within a team, is basically the support in bringing out this brand and providing for it. So for some time, we don't have to worry about investments in building more infrastructure. We can work with the team that we have. So I think by then we'll have the scale to sort of even hire more and get more resources. But right now we're using the time and the resources that we already have. So I think viability for us, I've spoken of. When it comes to the owner, scalability as well, right? I mean, I don't know. It's not every hotel. I must say, since we announced story, I can't say we have launched, we have announced story. We get a lot of leads, and anyone who's between 20 and 50 rooms, they do reach out to us. But they are not all story, because anyone who has a small format hotel it's not the same. And there are so many of those, right? So we have to be very, very choosy. And I hope in time we'll show you what we meant when we said story. So I think I did answer the scalability question.
Ask them on the name, please.
Yes.
Not the mic.
Not the mic. He's saying the leads. He's saying the leads.
No, on the scalability bit, if you and Tejas is here, so if you and I've been interacting with a lot of chains who are actually very serious about alternative accommodation, and just hear their plan for next 3 years, and you'll. So I don't think there is a doubt in terms of scalability in any of the suppliers' mind. Correct. The second question, which is more relevant, is how do we see the supply coming in? And you alluded to that fact that the supply. Is the supply coming in or not, especially on the villa segment or the secondary home? And I think that is more economics question, correct? How many people can afford? How many people can actually have a second home? Then the returns expected out of a hotel versus the return expected out of a villa is very different. And the economics works very, very different. If you can run a hotel at 60% occupancy, you can probably run a villa at a 35-40% occupancy and still be okay with the owner because it works like that. So I think in terms of viability, definitely it's profitable. OPEX-wise, it has to be profitable, otherwise nothing will run. But I think the kind of viability questions and the kind of ROI questions which comes on an alternate accommodation space is very different than the hotel accommodation space. People are more looking at, so supply is kind of getting into that boom phase. If you actually go to Hills, which is like one of the big areas, or go to Lonavala, people are building their secondary homes. Those villas are going to come whether you participate in that and those people are not going to stay in those villas for 12 months. So that supply is already there. Now who goes and ties up and gets it, some sweating of that asset is the critical piece, and I think that is where a lot of scalability plans are getting made with a lot of change.
No, so then that begs the question, because if you're saying that at 30% a villa is probably more profitable than a 60% hotel occupancy.
No, I'm saying expectations are different.
No, so the point is that if this boom of supply is going to continue for second homes or alternate spaces or whatever you want to classify them as, right? Is the demand going to match that? One. Two, if there are so many in one location or destination, how does it remain a different experience?
So are you saying that every villa has to have a different experience, or there is a different experience?
Well, that's why I would go there, right? Because if Lonavala is or Alibag are the two closest destinations that a Bombay guy goes to, right?
Let me put a use case.
If I'm staying in one saffron stay villa today, right? Either I like it or I don't like it. In most cases, I like it. Okay. Yeah. So then I have a choice. The next time I want to go back, either I go back to the same villa or I want to go to that location but want a different experience.
Correct.
Which may be pool, no pool, closer to the beach, not close to the beach, is the seafood restaurant next to me fantastic or not, whatever the criteria may be, right? So if there are going to be these multiple experiences, one, I have to want all those experiences. That's how demand will get generated. And two, if I don't want it or I don't know about it, then somebody has to market it to me saying it's different. Otherwise, why would I go back to it?
Correct. And
so how is that going to happen?
So, and you are right. So, one, it's not that every villa or every, say, story property will have a different experience, correct? What you have is a experience or a use case solve which is different. I'll give you an example. Take, for example, a lot of people go to Lonavala or people go to Goa, where there are 3 families traveling together or 2 families traveling together. Generally, you'll get 12 people traveling to Goa. Now, they can stay in a hotel, but let us say they want a common area. There is a task party going to happen just before Diwali. Now, that experience, and if there are 30 villas, are there 30 such families which want to go and do, then it's good supply demand, correct? Then you are in the balance. So even if you have a 30 villa in Lonavala, where 60 families are going in 30 villas, then the supply demand is sorted. The problem will happen only if you are solving for something for which there is not enough demand, and which I believe right now we have more than enough. There are more than enough.
Right now, because of the current situation where there is still some
overhang,
fear that I don't want to be around too many people. I want exclusivity. If it's a pool, then it has to be, sanitized every day or whatever it is that you need to do to ensure the probability of COVID is less, right?
Correct.
All that. So, but that's going to finish. I mean, we can't live with that forever, right? And we won't.
Yeah.
So, sooner or later, we will go back to the older parameters of demand, which is location driven or pure experience driven.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So, if we are going to go back to location driven, then it's fine. Then I may have a choice. But if it's going to be experience driven, and then there will be a bigger need to create different experiences in different assets in the same location. Or is there? That is my question.
So, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
So I really don't think it works like that. According to me, it's the destination that I decide that this time I'm going to go to, let's say, Goa or Leh or wherever. So first comes the destination, then comes what am I looking for? Is it one single room am I looking for? Then it's going to be Anjuna and Baga. If I'm looking for my family going, I will go to probably South Goa, and then a villa or not a villa, how many people in my family or friends, that kind of thing. So it is really stacked up like this, what destination and experiences I'll come to a little later. So what destination and what is my need? That need defines what is my accommodation type. Once that is sorted, then I figure out what am I going to do. Am I going to go to Zibob, or am I going to go to Martin's Corner, or I am going to cycle all the way up to a certain point or not? So these 3 levels have to stack up. And it's not that each villa, or if I've got 10 alternate accommodations, I have to really give different experiences there, because if I'm going to, let's say, a surfing destination, surfing is the activity. Everything else is ancillary. And you would know it, anybody who has been to south of Sri Lanka, it's purely a surfing town, Marisa and beyond Galle. And there are thousands of accommodations of all kinds. And they are all thriving, and activity is just one. So experience is one. Experience happens to be surfing, that's it.
Okay. So, in which case then the operator really becomes irrelevant.
Service provider and charge fee. Yeah. Service provider and charge fee.
Okay. So, so then comes the next question. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, I'm just whipping in. Service provider becomes, or the operator becomes relevant because of what, the branding and unbranding part of what we spoke about. As a brand, what you bring about is a level of certainty of the service. When I go there, I don't want to be worried about maybe, CCTVs. I don't want to be worried about some unscrupulous elements there. I don't want to worry about the bathrooms being clean, the bed linen being clean. So that is what the operator brings over here. The experiences, in all my experience, I'll tell you that the families come there and they just know how to enjoy themselves. We ensure that we stay out of the way. We ensure that we don't actually create experiences in a property because people just want to be with themselves. We only provide them the one primary promise, which is the cleanliness, the certainty of service, and more than anything else, the privacy of the property. So here, no one else is going to come around and watch you, judge you. You can be in the pool, you can play around, your kids can run around all day, your pets can run around all day. No one's going to question you and ask you things. So I think that promise is something that will never go away. Experience is something that people create for themselves. Okay, the memories they create for themselves. And you'll be surprised at how many times we've been asked this question, what is to do around here? And we just give them a list, acha ye sab karo, and please tell me if you've done all this at the end of your stay. And no one steps out of the house. No one steps away from the veranda. No one steps away from the pool. I mean, there are these centers of gravity that, homes have, and literally no one else goes anywhere other than that.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Yes.
You want to talk about fee, no?
Yeah, no, I just said we'll make it relevant. We'll charge the fee and we'll make it relevant.
Okay.
Yeah. Next questions are.
No, I don't have a question. No. Let me just pull out those questions. I'm sure there is something around. Okay, so we've talked about infrastructure, we talked about facility. We all agreed, at least the operators in this room have agreed that they don't have any experiential delivery promise. They just promise the fact that they're there.
No, both of us, we said yes, experiences.
No, it is. AM said we don't do experiences.
Okay.
Saffron says we don't promise experiences. You can create your own experience. Fantastic. मैं तो सिर्फ घर दे रहा हूँ. You can stay there, you can sleep there, you can do what you want. That's all I promise. Right? Which is what my next question was going to be. Since both of you are promising a story, promising something different, promising that we will contribute to that experience, where is the meeting ground, or is there any?
So they'll need to be, right?
They will need to be.
They will need to be.
Okay.
So I think I did start off by saying that, these properties that we are looking for, they need to have a character. I've said that several times. So, and I also mentioned that we're competing with the homes of people. So first thing is that the product that you're staying in needs to be experiential, right? Now, how are we bringing, what are we bringing? That is what the owner's bringing, and we'll guide them, obviously. What are we bringing in? We are bringing in the service delivery. So these places have always existed. What has not happened is that they were not standardized. The services were not standardized. With ITs, like, it's high time, and we put our good experience to use, right? Or experience to good use, and standardize the services around these smaller boutique hotels. So that is what we are adding. And we are bringing these properties, giving them visibility, which otherwise they probably would not have had, right? So in terms of, I am not saying that we will do cycling tours for you. We are not those people. We are not doing hiking tours or something like that. But yes, some trails, some experience for the family, for the kids, for the gentleman vibes. However, the whole family together. Each story is going to have some experience, some sort of unique experience based on the location that it is. And we are thinking of doing, taking our guests to a local village home and giving them authentic village food, village experiences. So these are like things that people have done, but we are also like sort of thinking on these lines, other things. But yeah, we are not getting into sports and activities and things like that. But yes, the brand promise, like they just mentioned, that would stay. And we are standardizing the whole experiences around these, these indigenous hotels.
So are you saying that whether I live in a Portuguese home or a British home, the linen will be the same,
Yes.
the amenities will be the same?
You will get the comfort of a 5-star hotel in that room. That comfort will be there. The character of the building, the architecture of the building, the interior design of the building has to be of a certain level. And that should speak to you as well. And yes, and there will be some unique experiences to that location, right? It could be a view. It could be just barbecue outside your, in your front yard, terrace. Yeah, all of that we will do. Yeah, those experiences we'll do.
So I'm not so sure if standardization and experiences can go hand in hand, right? It's sort of they're working at crossroads.
Okay.
If you want to be truly experiential, then how do you standardize that experience, and then how do you scale that? So that's the stumbling block. If you truly experiential, I don't think you can scale up to that level. And standardizing experiences is actually going to work, in a different way.
No, I didn't mean you were standardizing experiences, but what I'm saying is that basic amenities, basic comforts which come with brand promise, there will have to be some amount of standardization to start building economies.
Sure.
Of scale,
On the
right?
amenities and so on, yes,
so,
absolutely.
your soap aroma would probably be the same, or the fact that it's standardized that there is an aroma to the soap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be a different aroma in the hills and different on the beach, right? It's very possible.
Levels, linen, bed quality, all of that needs to be there.
Absolutely.
Those need to be there.
So I think
the
that's
product
where-
can be standardized, yeah.
So my last question to the panelists, and then we'll throw it open to any comments that may exist. So with these smaller asset sizes, right, so to speak, the focus largely being on being unique, being different, being just being there, right? How are you going about attracting talent?
I think it's
Because-
easier for us now. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Because if the larger brands are having difficulty with talent, with siloed performance expectations, with somebody who needs to be multi-skilled, multitasked, oriented, and profitability focused, and a conservation specialist, and a service delivery specialist, कहाँ से आएंगे भाई ये लोग?
I totally agree with you. I mean, let's look at the associate executive level, 15, 16,000 rupees a month. Through COVID, they've really, I'm sorry, but they've really realized that they'd rather be at home farming and milking their cows and, spending time with their family. And we've lost a lot, as we could see in the talk before this about talent. We've lost a lot of talent, and it's a major crisis. For us, I think we've got a flatter structure. The brand is sort of become more relevant. The kind of experiences that we're giving is more relevant. And so that's not gone through only at the consumer level, but also through the workforce. So it's easier for us now. We've got a lot of guys who are sort of leaving the larger brands and saying, look, we're interested in what you're doing. This is the space of the future. And they're recognizing that. So for us, it's become slightly easier.
Okay.
So difficult it is, so no doubt about it. Two ways to circumvent it. One is that create an kind of a support system within the team. So we highly rely on our own team to get more people. That's one. Two, localize the team. So there are good about 50% of the people, if they're local to that area, it's better for us because we are in a local community, local village, close by village, and anybody who is to work in Mumbai but back in Uttarakhand is willing to now stay and work with us because our price points, the salaries that we are giving out as organized players is similar. So, and you can go from Himachal till or Leh till Goa and you find the same thing. I mean, we have got lots of people in Manish's hotel who are very local to that area and they are not the guys who are leaving. They may not be performing, they may not be multi-skilled, but they are not willing to go from there. And price point wise, we have come up to the level of what any brand would offer. So those are the two ways we are circumventing it. But to say that that problem doesn't exist, I don't think is true for my company, and I'm having a great challenge trying to make that work.
I've outsourced this to HR. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll find a way.
So I've been told we're out of time, but I am going to push the envelope and take 2 or 3 last comments from anybody who is willing to make them.
Hi, I'm Shirat Mathur, work with Smita in Growth and Development team in ITC Hotels. We have talked about the upscale and about luxury and more branded players, like how we can look at it. Even Saffron Stays, including the newest players, or Vista Room, they all have a brand already in place. But there are still a section of alternate accommodation which we have not touched upon, which is unique and experiential, but maybe towards the lower segment, budget, economy, but not yet so well branded. Suppose we talk about pod hotels in Mumbai, or there are certain, because they have copy-pasted this concept from a place like Japan, or because people who are in the city and not going to spend so much time in the hotel, but have work to do and meetings throughout the day and then catch early morning flight or a train, they just like to just enter the hotel, just sleep and get out. And then there are also some alternative accommodations like even co-living or even hostels or combination of hostels which is getting into branded space, but still highly unorganized currently. But maybe in few years down the line, we'll also see the demand increasing and then getting more organized into the segment, and with, of course, COVID affecting a lot of things for them as well in the budget. But of course, but the kind of rates that these hotels like pod hotels and all are getting are equivalent to anything like a branded Ibis hotel or Red Fox or hotel would be getting, at least 4,000 to 5,000 in the good top cities. So that is also one of the alternatives. And of course, MakeMyTrip and all of you are like selling those hotels on your portals already.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's hi. So I'm Agnev Mukherjee from Octash Advisors. We are with MTDC. So right now here, I would like to ask it more from a consumer point of view than a industry point of view. That with the pandemic coming in and people traveling a lot in solo, and the solo traveling increasing a lot. So do you think a lot of these organized players, are they even catering to the solo traveler section, and is it something that needs to be coming more and more into purview, because of which hostels and the brands of such kind of become, and even pods as you mentioned, these are more for people who don't want to spend so much for a accommodation which can cater 2 people but I'm alone, but want to go to an accommodation which is good enough and small enough for a single person and in a budget, because I can't spend so much for my solo trips. So is it something that is also should be considered in this segment, is what I had, and maybe this was something we could discuss, and I feel that this is something that the industry also needs to discuss on a more broader scale.
Yeah. So, and you're right. So solo and I think RM also alluded to the same fact when he was presenting, that solo travel is actually increasing, and you're right. Hostels, not so much pod, but hostels are definitely talk of the town when you actually go towards the hill. So backpacking and the Indian youth, I think, is the one which is figuring out. Not a lot of people actually say that I want to stay in a hostel just because of the price point. What you get is also a social environment, correct? A hostel sells because of the common area that they have, correct? Where you can talk to other people who are similar to you. They spend 30 days, 20 days, they form a friendship. So I think there is a different use case, and it's growing. And it's growing to places which are traditionally not the best place. So let's take, for example, Leh was big. Now we are going to Pyongyang. Now you are going to Nubra Valley. So people are finding new places, and they know that if you are there, then you think like I think, and that creates a better environment, and then you figure out, and people spend a lot of time. So I think you're right. This trend is picking up, and for us also it's very good, because those are the people probably who will come to the villas and the 5-star hotels later on.
So I have 2 suggestions for you. Find a girlfriend, or come and I'll give you 1 breakfast free.
So with this, the official version of this discussion is over because my friend from Hotelivate is stressed. So coffee, yeah, okay. So for those of you who want to hang around and chat further, we are available. Otherwise,